Well, hello, my gorgeous crones. Why am I calling you a crone, you might wonder? Am I insulting you? Well, crone is the crowning stage of womanhood. The crone is the divine, feminine, wisdom, goddess archetype. She's within us all. And it is now the stage of our life, after 50, to live fearlessly by tapping into our innate crone wisdom, claiming our unapologetic, authentic selves, age disgracefully, and pretty much do whatever it is that our heartful wisdom desires tell us. That's Crone Life. And are you ready to go on that journey with me? Living fearlessly after 50. Hello, I am 𝔸𝔻𝕊𝕊𝕗 and I am your Crone Life Joy Reboot mentor, and I am here to guide single empty nester women over 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 to tap into their innate joyful wisdom and create the lives of passion and purpose that maybe they've been ignoring for the previous decades while taking care of other people. So, welcome. I know that we're at the end of 2022, but it's not too late to finish with a bang. So, let's set ourselves up for success in 2022, 3, 4, 5, on and beyond. Hopefully, touch wood. I'm at 50 now. I would love to live for another 50 years, focused on putting my own passions first. So hopefully you'll be doing the same. In this masterclass, we're going to be talking about releasing what no longer serves us, recharging our energy through a simple shift in mindset. So we don't have to stand on our head, we don't have to do a whole bunch of stuff. It's a simple flip of the switch, and we then know with that flip of the switch that we have access to abundant, ever-present, vibrant, radiant, joyful energy, no matter what's going on. And that we can confidently open our hearts and our arms, ready to receive all the goodness that the universe has to offer. The universe is not out to get us. So, what we'll be covering today: where our emotions come from, the truth about how we experience stuff and why you don't need to fear your thoughts and emotions, how you can release the past without reliving it, effortless recharging. You can be okay no matter what's going on, so there's no need to worry. And being in the present moment, ready to receive. And here's a little hint about the present moment. The present moment is not your actual current physical condition. I used to think that that was the case. And of course, sometimes our current conditions suck and we don't want to be in them. But no, the present moment is a very different energetic space that has absolutely nothing to do with what's physically going on in our lives. Okay, so have you been telling yourself, I've told myself all these things, I'm guessing you might have as well, have you been telling yourself that if only you had done things differently, not made that particular crappy decision, then you'd be happy now? 2 toxic husbands behind me, going to work that day, or crossing the road at that pedestrian crossing the day that I got run over at high speed, selling up my home and selling all my belongings on a whim to move overseas and get married to ex number 2. Yeah, many things that I've done in my life that I look back on, or had been looking back on previously, looking back on with a less than positive outlook. Shame, guilt, regret, you name it. I felt it. The should-haves. How do you release that? Well, we'll be talking about that today. Have you been telling yourself that you are, maybe right now you're feeling lost, you're feeling overwhelmed? I'm now myself a single empty nester. So you might well be saying that the kids have gone, the partner's gone, you're looking at your life 50 plus and wondering, what the hell? What the hell? What do I do now? Or possibly maybe your kids are soon to be leaving and you're with a partner who you're wondering what's going on there. But nonetheless, you're facing this stage of your life where some parts of your life might be winding down and you're wondering what now? Well, we'll be tackling that anxiety-producing thinking in this talk today. Or maybe nothing's particularly problematic, like overly problematic right this moment, but it's just simply this sense of surely there is more to your existence than waking up, taking a shower, going to work, getting paid, paying the bills, coming home, cooking dinner, streaming Netflix for hours, doom scrolling on your phone and going to bed. Surely there is more than the physical, physical world, surely. And I'm here also to tell you that there is way more than what is currently our capitalist consumer lifestyle that's being tying happiness to the getting of things. And that segues me with you into where my particular brand of mentoring and view of the world is being informed, where it's coming from. I do have 3 degrees in psychology, a degree in counselling, certification as a coach over the last 30 odd years. So I've been navigating different spiritual traditions as well. So I guess for me, I have been in search of that ephemeral question, that eternal question, who the hell are we and where do we come from and where are we going and what in truth is our human experience. Now, the fundamental way that we've been told we show up in the world from this rationalist, materialist view of the world over the last few hundred years is one that is focused primarily on the brain and the intellect, on the nervous system and emotions. And one fundamental myth that we've all been sold on is that the outside world is the cause of our feelings. We all innocently say stuff like, my kids are driving me mad, my job's pissing me off, my date made me happy, they got me something, that holiday, I feel really happy because I went on that holiday. We are all innate beings that seek well-being. This is just part of the human experience. We move towards what feels good and away from what doesn't. So that's natural to all living beings. The problem is that we have a misunderstanding of where that happiness is coming from. And so if we think the happiness is coming from out there, then we are going to come up with solutions to solve the out there problem if the out there is not making us feel happy. Or we have a moment where the out there we think is making us happy, and we get really kind of possessively attached to it and trying to do everything we can to prevent that thing that we think is causing us to feel happy, we try and prevent it from going away. Now, the ephemeral nature of all of existence is change. Things arise and they fall. They're born, they die. We can't stop change. We certainly can't stop change intellectually. But because we've been fed a messaging of how the world works and how it works for us as we show up in it, we've gotten a bit caught up in some incorrect problem solving. We're focusing on the wrong thing and therefore coming up with incorrect solutions to the thing that we shouldn't even be looking at because it's not true. So then if the outside world isn't causing our feelings, what is? It's the story that we are telling ourselves in that moment. And so the Three Principles paradigm by Sydney Banks. Sydney Banks, in fact, was not a man educated in psychology or philosophy or anything like that. He was actually a welder. And in the early 70s, he attended a group coaching kind of event with his wife, and he walked away from it and with his wife going, this was a load of rubbish and it was a complete waste of time, and I still feel really shitty and all the stuff. And he had an epiphany. We have them, those moments where we have a spark of inspiration because we plug ourselves into the universe in the present moment, and for a moment are not in our head trying to logic our way through something. And he had a flash, an insight about where happiness derives from, how the truth of our human experience, how we show up in the world. And over the next, from the 70s through till 2009 when he died and beyond, because there were many practitioners like myself who have done their research, are trained, work in from his Three Principles paradigm understanding. So it continues on. I would suggest one book for yourselves to grab a hold of would be Sydney Banks's The Missing Link. You can get it in Amazon. It's a small book, and intellectually it seems very simple. But as you'll come to understand at the end of this, that transformation is a game. Transformation is present moment insight. It is that moment that we are plugged into the abundant, limitless universe of all-knowing and allow to arise within us a spark of insight. And we don't shoo it away with our thinking head. When we have those moments, we get to really taste the truth of our being. So the Three Principles has a few things that really stand out. The Three Principles being universal mind. Buddhists would say like Dhammadhatu, the others of a more theistic framework might call it God, but it's that all-pervasive energy that runs through all living beings, all the universe. It is vibrant, alive, intelligent. And we have at any moment an opportunity to access and plug into that because we are it. We're all part of the same fabric of existence. Consciousness. Consciousness is that ability to know ourselves. It's the breath of life. It's that spark that is what gives us life and enables us to ponder about our own pondering It's our consciousness. And interestingly, the third one is thought. Now, when we talk thought, or when Sydney Banks talked thought, he was talking at it from a paradigm level, like we talk about gravity or electricity or any of these manifestations of energy and that just are. You know, we don't have to do anything with them. They just are. Well, when he's talking about thought, he's not talking about personal thinking, your personal head chatter. It's the formless, powerful, ever-present energy of thought. It is through this thought, formless thought, that the world is created. The physical world, the imagined world, it is through thought. Then we have, yes, indeed, underneath all that we have our personal thinking. That is the taking of that thought energy and shaping it with our own unique lens of experience. Now, the beautiful thing with understanding thought as a paradigm, as an energetic construct, is to understand that it's not something that we have to manipulate in any way. We don't have to be scared of it either. In itself, it is neutral, but it's our personal thinking about thought that gets us caught up sometimes in dis-ease and problematic experience. We all possess innate well-being. So underneath this thought popping in your head, a nervous system response in reaction to it, ebb and flow of thought and feeling, underneath all that is our innate well-being, that consciousness, that spark that is plugging us into the universe. We are all joy at our core. We are all unconditional love at our core. We are vibrant, we are wise, all-knowing at our core. It's just that we sometimes get a little bit trapped in our thinking, and the thinking looks real to us in the moment, and that takes us away from our true nature. We each have our own unique thought-created reality. I touched on that a moment before. We have our personal thinking that is coming up from past experiences and the story that we've given it and the meaning that we've given it, our current perception of what's going on, and we then mold the world from our thinking in that moment. But it's just thought. And it evaporates when you stop shining a light on it and placing importance on it. It's the added extra layers of meaning that we give to our experience that keeps us stuck in it. A little example of that would be you and I might go to the movies together. We're sitting next to each other, same movie theatre, same movie. We're even sharing popcorn from the same tub of popcorn. But my experience of that whole thing that's going on is going to be vastly different to yours. There might be some overlap, but there'll be differences because I bring into that space in that moment my set of unique perceptual lenses and beliefs and stories, and you bring in yours. Your taste of that popcorn is going to be very different to mine. It's the same popcorn, but we will experience it differently. And the problem that we frankly get into in all our relationships, whether they're intimate, partnered, or at work, is we assume that because the person's having the same, they're in the same physical space with us in that moment, we assume they're having exactly the same experience. And then wonder why they're behaving differently and get annoyed. But they're not. They have their own experience in their head. Hence, we are living in the feelings of our thinking 100% of the time. No one is in control of what you are feeling. No one is in control of your experience. They may well be doing stuff, but they're not controlling how you experience what they're doing. That is not to say, disclaimer here, that is not to say that if you're in an abusive situation, a harmful situation, that you stay in it. It's just to understand that they're doing what they're doing because of the story in their head. And you may well be accepting their crappy behavior because of the story you're telling yourself that might well not be permitting you to say no more and up and leave. So we do actually have a universal contract to be out of harm's way. So don't stay in harm, please, at all. Get help. Okay, so personal thinking and nervous system emotional response ebbs and flows. A thought pops in your head. You cannot control what thought pops in your head, nor can you control the nervous system response that happens to in response to the thinking that you're having in that moment. But here's a beautiful thing. When you don't latch on with extra meaning and building story on top of story, they just evaporate. Naturally, that is like tide going in and out. You don't have to do anything to make that happen. It happens. It's how it's meant to happen. And underneath the tide of personal thinking and nervous system response is your innate stream wisdom consciousness. And it is in that stream of wisdom consciousness that is in fact the flow that you want to be on to get through life, rather than trying to bob up and down or move through the ebb and flow of thought and feeling. And when you understand that thought and feeling just comes and goes and you don't have to do anything about it, it means that you don't have to freak out about it. You can have a crappy thought for a moment. You can have an unpleasant feeling for a moment. It's okay. It's not permanent. You don't have to do anything with it to make it go away. So we've been talking about the Three Principles Paradigm by Sydney Banks, and I did my training in the Three Principles that now informs how I coach and mentor. And that was about 4 years ago. And last year in February at 2 in the morning, I had an epiphany of my own, and that was what gave birth to my Awaken the Joy Within framework. And the epiphany was because I had been pondering relationships from the inside out, or the Three Principles perspective, and looking at my relationship with myself, my dad, my 2 ex-husbands, my 25-year-old daughter, and those times that were problematic and difficult. And I pondered about how I was showing up in them. And what I've understood from mainstream relationship in counselling and therapy and that is that because we've all been fed a myth about where our experience comes from, as in we're told that it's our husband's pissing us off, our kids are driving us crazy, our job is, annoying us or whatever, then naturally if that's what we believe, then we set up looking to solve that problem and finding techniques that would, well, inevitably try and change either the thing itself or our story about it. And the issue with that is that it keeps us in our head. And it keeps us outwardly focused, and we're wondering why we still feel we're just not okay, often still worried. I still spent a great deal of time, even though I was physically no longer with those ex-husbands, I still spent a great deal of time in my head conversing with them, trying to figure out why they did what they did and why I did what I did and the whole stuff, you know. And what I came to understand is that the answer to well-being was not in achieving happiness in our relationship to the stuff out there or doing things or how we are with people, but rather when we show up in the world in our innate well-being, then all those problems kind of take care of themselves. It was bringing it up another level rather than being problem-focused, being wisdom-focused. And so out of that came this Awaken the Joy Within framework. What is this innate joy? How do we get there? What does it look like? What's happening when we're in it? And 6 interconnected elements, ways. I don't want to say steps because nothing in life is linear, but interconnected ways to tap into that innate well-being, which then helps us to follow our innate wisdom and have an intuitively guided life rather than an anxious thinking guided life. So the first is awareness. When I talk about awareness, realizing where our experience comes from. So I talked a little bit earlier about that awareness. When I'm saying awareness, that it is that epiphany, that existential realization, that insight that we are more than the story in our head. Awareness, focus, what we're looking at, what we're paying attention to. Understanding that we can either be in our head about something or we can be in our wisdom about it. And so also understanding that it is simply a shift in awareness. The transformation that we're seeking to have ease and flow in our life comes from a shift in awareness. Now, we don't shift anything. There's no tool to make that happen. It's a light turning on. It's a light switch turning on. It's an epiphany moment. It arises not through our logic, thinking, or doing, but it is simply a shift out of the story and the mechanics of being and doing things in the world to just allowing ourselves to listen to that inner voice that is nudging us in one direction or another, that is a yes or a no. Wisdom. Wisdom is our true inner compass. That wisdom that we've been talking about, it is that inner knowing. The source of that inner knowing is the universe. It's what we plug ourselves into, energetically speaking. It's not the story in our head. It's not our book learning. And so this notion that we logic our way through life is in fact incorrect, incomplete, and often inaccurate. Appreciation. I know that a lot of us hear attitude of gratitude, but interestingly enough, gratitude can have within it a little bit of a phew, that didn't happen as badly as I expected kind of tinge to it. Appreciation is active. It is not about the story in our head and our perception of things. Appreciation is the energetic openness of our heart when we are in the present moment, when we are walking through life heart forward instead of head forward. We get to just be in a state of appreciation. The universe is love. And when we are open to that, we become vessels of love. Love then flows through us and around us and between us. And when we reside in that space, we are open to appreciate all that is our being, all that is in existence in front of us, all that was and all that will be. It's a beautiful state to be in, appreciation. Kindness. Now, that's a hard one. I know it has been for me. That links into those regrets and shame and guilt and all that thinking. But the beautiful thing is, because we are by definition energy beings plugged into a universe of unconditional love, kindness is in fact innately ever-present, existent within us and between us. When we let go of that story in our head about how things should have been, could have been, all that stuff, how we should have behaved, all that thinking, then we allow ourselves to just be in that moment and accept that we did the best that we could with what we knew. When we live by our intellectual, abstract, theoretical thinking, it is limited, it is incomplete, and it is inaccurate. We can't see around corners. We make assumptions about other people and what they're thinking and why they're in their intentions and what they're doing. That is just a natural consequence of living from your head. We can't change that limitation. And when we understand that sometimes we get caught up in it through no fault of our own, then we can be a little bit kinder to ourselves. And then we can also be a little bit kinder to other people. Now, that kindness does not mean that you accept abuse or harm in any way, but it's simply acknowledging that everyone's doing the best they can with what they have at that moment. We have a fresh moment and a fresh opportunity to have a different experience, though. Equanimity. Equanimity is the insight, the realization that even if your circumstances are a bit shitty, you yourself at your core are not. You're not broken. Nothing needs fixing. You don't need to be head shrunk. You don't need 1,000,001, let's see, from the sort of the more spiritualist manifestation space. You don't need a whole bunch of, I don't know, elixirs and crystals and spells and all the rest of it. There's nothing, Freud said we're a mix of id, superego, ego, and a hot mess. Unfortunately, many of the theistic faiths, Christianity in particular, it's sort of saying, we're born in original sin, so we're fundamentally broken in some way. They've got the wrong end of the stick. And we've been taught that there's, unconscious blocks and wounds and things to fix, and there isn't. Our fundamental core being is pristine, it's radiant, it's infinite, and there's nothing broken and there's nothing that needs fixing. And we don't have to get ourselves out of our head. Thoughts pass naturally by themselves, and it is that spark of awareness that it is just thinking in the moment that snaps us back into our innate wisdom. And finally, the now focus. I'm laboured under a fundamental error of what the now is for many years. We think current moment, as in our current conditions, and often our current conditions mightn't be the best. So why the hell would we want to focus on them? No, we don't. The present moment is this energetic, infinite space that we find ourselves in when we are free from thinking about the past, free from worrying about the future, and free from all that story and labels of self and others. And when all that falls away, we're in our present moment. And it is in that dynamic, vibrant, bright, joyful space that our insight for the next moment arises. We don't have to know a million moments ahead. We can't. It's not possible. Thankfully. Okay, so we are going to try and make things work here. Okay, so we've been talking now, and I've given you little insights into the life events that have inspired me on my journey to try and figure out surely there's more to life than being the sum of the parts of the events that have happened to me. And so I've already sort of hinted at the fact that I'm twice divorced, once in my early 20s to a man that was older than me, and then entering into 40 with a man that was younger than me. Both were different races, different ethnicities, different everything. There was that gap, about 9-year gap, maybe 10-year gap between them, and not much dating in between. Indeed, with the second one, it took a little bit longer to let go of the shame spiral talking, because I had it in my head, well, heck, you've got your background in psychology and counselling and all the rest of it. Surely you would have learned from the first to the last and wouldn't have made the mistake in the first place, and all the shoulding. But here's the thing. The past doesn't predict the future. The past is dead. It happened. And all that happens when we cling on to believing that if we keep re-examining the past in the present moment, thinking that will somehow avoid the potholes of the future, unfortunately, what we're focused on is what we get. So if we're focused on the potholes in order to avoid them, then believe me, you'll see far more potholes and you'll fall into them all. And the past, reanalyzing it does not give you any lesson, because what you saw in the past, the decisions you made in the past, you are not that person anymore. What you understood then in that moment cannot be reimagined in the present moment, because it's a new thought. It's a new experience of the past. So that whole re-examining your past, re-analysing it, reliving it, re-blah, all the re-stuff in order to release it is not true. Releasing it just is automatic when you accept as insight that you did what you did then, you're not that person now, and you have access to fresh experience right now and in the next moment and in the next moment. And that it's the fear of not making future mistakes that has us stuck in our ruminating about the past. And again, it comes from a misunderstanding of what it is that we need to be trusting. We don't have to trust the outside world. We don't have to trust in whatever out there, or the person, or our selection of the person, or anything like that, to be okay. When we taste what it is to follow our inner wisdom and believe in it, each present moment is all that we need. And we don't need to worry about what's coming up, because we know fundamentally in that next fresh moment, when I am in my wisdom, arising within me will be the right response. Hence why these days, yes, I do all these slides, but to be quite honest, I'm not reading off the slide, and I'm not reading off any notes or some memorized abstract theoretical thinking, story or screenplay, whatever. I'm speaking in the present moment, right now with you, and I'm allowing myself to flow with what arises. And I'm not worrying about the fact that I'm sometimes going or being scared of the pause where something doesn't arise immediately and you try and shove something in there. You don't need to do that. You can, as you start to allow yourself to settle into the rhythm of your wisdom arising, trust is just innate to being in the present moment wisdom, and everything will fall into place as it's meant to, and you will respond in that moment in the best way possible, and you know that you have access to limitless wisdom for the next moment. This is our true compass. And when we're in that, then you don't need to blame other people, you don't have to blame yourself, you don't have to keep looking back, you don't have to worry about how of the future. And so all those things that we think are problems subtly, simply are not a problem, because it's a state of awareness. That's all. Yeah. And I love that. So you might be wondering, well, gee, that all sounds so nice. A bit woo-woo. What the hell is she on about? And, well, how is it going to affect me? Pardon me while I take a sip. Love it. Earl Grey tea. Absolutely lovely. Okay, so ponder for this moment. If you were no longer caught in the story in your head, reliving the past, caught up in abstract theoretical labels of self and others, or worrying about the future, how would that work for you? What would that look like for you? How would you be showing up in your world? So imagine that no matter what the hell's going on, because believe me, yes, we are energy beings in a flesh sack having a human experience in a physical world. Absolutely, no doubt about it. I am not at all trying to say that there is no external physical reality. Believe me, if you stub your toe, it'll hurt. It's just simply that our perception of this external world is completely and utterly thought created. And we can at any moment have a fresh thought. Nothing is permanent. So imagine, rather than trying to find an external solution to the perceived problem that you might say that you're going through right now, imagine if you didn't see it as a problem in this moment. Just let all that thinking just slip away, and allow yourself to sit with the quiet wisdom within you, and not immediately try and fill that stillness with activity and thinking. Maybe allow for yourself to let move around in your consciousness, just this notion that the problem that you are seeing as a problem isn't carved in stone as the problem that you see it, or in the way that you see it, that there is possibility that a shift in awareness could eradicate that thing that you're calling a problem, and that you are breathing life into and making solid through your thinking. Imagine that. Imagine knowing, and I don't mean knowing, none of what I've been talking about today is about intellectual book learning, logicking. The true transformation is in heart. We sometimes feel it in our heart. For a lot of women, like myself, we feel it in our gut. That is the home of our sacral chakra. It's our creative engine. So it's those gut feelings, speaking to, often it's connected, speaking to each other. Imagine knowing as transformative insight, knowing in your bones that no matter what crappy thinking you've got going on in the moment, or what nervous system response is going on in the moment, that your essential you, your energetic you, is okay. And that ebb and flow of thought and emotion will pass without you doing anything. How fundamentally secure that is, knowing that. Imagine being able to leave the past behind you. It is as simple as changing your mind, changing your decision, letting it go. We do it all the time. God, how many times have we sat down to do some work or do some study and allow other thoughts, other thinking to come in and distract us from what we've meant to be doing? Well, similarly, we could be on a train of thinking that is about some past event, and we're reliving it and rehashing it and adding more layers of meaning to it. We can indeed allow ourselves to distract ourselves away from that train of thought and let it evaporate. Take the power off it, switch the light off, and focus elsewhere. Absolutely. And I would suggest that the best place to focus, rather than what a lot of us do, which is focus on outward doing, and we just do stuff to get distracted, Netflix or doom scrolling, as we say, but rather allow for yourself to comfortably sit with yourself and just be in that present moment within your innate joyful wisdom, consciousness. Imagine being in your higher self wisdom and seeing that same wisdom in others, even the difficult people in your life. We become problematic in our own lives, and they do too, when they, for a moment, get caught up in the story in the head and it looks really real. I mean, those times where we've said our spouse is pissing us off and our job is exhausting us and all the stuff, or that you might say, well, Pia, but I am sick, my body is in pain. And I'm not saying those things aren't happening, but our experience of said sickness, said pain, the story we are telling ourselves, the meaning we're giving us of ourselves and the world in relation to it, that is completely illusory. That is made up by us, and we have within us the ability to let go of that story and focus elsewhere. No one said that we have to suffer through life. Life indeed, change. The nature of existence is one of change. It's temporary. Birth, death, the whole kit and caboodle, absolutely. But we don't have to suffer it. The suffering is the meaning and the story we give it. Yeah. So just imagine, though, wouldn't it be fabulous? So what you get living a guided life, and guided by your innate wisdom rather than the story in your head, you get to experience calm and clarity, confidence, fully realizing that no matter how anybody else sees the world, no matter how they behave, that your feelings are yours and they have no power over you. Nothing does. That you get to walk into a once dreaded situation. I mean, I used to have those. I used to tell my, dress rehearse in my mind before going into particular settings or groups or what have you, preparing based on my past, my re-examining or reliving the past and trying to predict the future from it, and dress rehearsing what they said this before, so they're going to say it again now, and I responded then, and the whole stuff. Well, you don't have to do that, because even if you are walking into the same room, you're not the same. They're not the same. The past does not predict the future. So you can walk into a once dreaded situation open to whatever happens and finding it to be unexpectedly positive when you're not following the story in your head. The world is no longer in control of your experience. That's the freedom. That's the fearlessness. And it's not to say that you're not going to have moments of sadness and anger and all the myriad of experience that is part of being being human in this existence. We're not saying be a robot. We're not saying you're not going to feel anything. We're not saying that you're going to have an Instagram perfect life where everything just falls into place and then you can be happy. What I'm saying is that when you have that fundamental awareness that no matter what's going on, you are fundamentally always okay, that's the freedom. And that's the fearlessness, because you don't have to be scared of your experience ever again. When we show up in the world in our present moment wisdom, open-hearted and ready to receive whatever's going to arise, knowing that we have access to infinite wisdom and the best possible response in that moment will arise within us and be expressed, then we have then innate compassion and patience and forgiveness for ourselves and for other people. Because we don't have to try and make it happen. The thing is, sometimes we're going to be caught up in our head in the story and it's going to look really, really totally real. We can't stop that from happening. And the epiphany arises with the fresh experience. It happens. We don't have to, there's no particular tool or thing that you have to do. You're not chasing the changed awareness. It's just simply knowing it will happen, because that's how the universe works. It will just happen. We don't have to freak out about anything that's going on in our experience. Being in harmony with Source and the universe by living in that state of compassion, being that open vessel for unconditional love to flow through us and between us and around us. That is our innate joy. And imagine that when we keep showing up from that space, the limitless abundance that we can experience. It is a beautiful space to be in. And it's ours. And it's already there. You have it. I have it. Doesn't matter what's been going on before. Just sit with that for a moment, because it is... It's the stillness of knowing you don't have to chase anything anymore. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Now, we've wrapped everything up for this masterclass. If what I have been talking about with you for the last hour has been sending shivers of delight through you, and you're intrigued and want to know how you can experience your life with fresh thought and no longer be ruled by the story in your head, and be no longer scared of your passing experience, then please reach out to me. It's never too late. One of the beautiful things about being a crone is that now is the time for our carefree, unapologetic, authentic, aging disgracefully, joyful wisdom, doing what the hell we want and not worrying about what anyone else has to say about it. If this is what you want for yourself, then please reach out. You can email me at pia@essentialawakeningmentoring.com. You can pop across to my website at essentialawakeningmentoring.com. You can find me in Facebook. You can find me in Instagram. Reach out. I would love to set up a free 15-minute Awaken the Joy Within discovery call and see how we could work together. Thank you for tuning in. Peace and blessings, and take care.